My name is Lauren Parker. I'm 41 years old, and the last time my family saw me, I was being led out of our Arizona home in handcuffs. That was 17 years ago, and my sister Madison has made sure nobody ever forgot it. Today, I'm standing in the back hallway of St. Andrew's Cathedral in San Diego, peeking through the heavy walnut doors at Madison's wedding rehearsal. She's radiant, poised, and completely unaware that the disgraced screw-uppy she's mocked for most of her life is now a sergeant with the San Diego Police Department's Major Crimes Unit. Madison always played the part of the perfect daughter, honor roll, track team captain, first chair violin. She landed a full ride to Stanford, then law school, and now she's marrying Captain Daniel Whitaker, a Marine officer I've actually worked with on 2 high-profile joint investigations. Thanks to her married name soon changing, he has no clue we're related. I wasn't invited here, of course. I found out about the wedding during a debrief last month, when Daniel mentioned he was marrying Madison Coley and showed me a picture of her on his phone. My stomach dropped. After more than 2 decades of estrangement, there was her face, smiling, perfect, untouched by the years of distance between us. Daniel had grinned like a man who'd won the lottery. She's amazing, he said. Comes from a great family. Only blemish is her sister, bit of a black sheep. Got arrested as a teenager. Never amounted to much. I'd forced a polite nod and changed the subject. The arrest he was talking about happened when I was 18. I'd gone out with friends one summer night, thinking we were headed to a backyard party. Instead, we stumbled onto an abandoned warehouse being used for an illegal gun trade. When the ATF raided the place, I was one of 24 people rounded up. The charges against me were dropped in days. I was a witness, not a suspect, but the damage to my family's image in our small Scottsdale neighborhood was irreversible. My parents, both respected attorneys, were humiliated. Madison, then 16 and already obsessed with appearances, told me I'd ruined her life. The whispers at the country club, the headlines in the local paper, it was too much for her to forgive. My father didn't yell. He simply shipped me off to a military boarding school in New Mexico with the words, until you learn to make better choices. I never went back home. After graduation, instead of returning to Arizona, I enlisted in the Army Military Police Corps. 4 years of service taught me discipline, tactics, and a kind of self-respect I'd never known. When my contract ended, I joined the San Diego Police Department, starting on patrol before working my way up to major crimes. 15 years later, I've put away cartel lieutenants, solved cold case homicides, and testified in front of state committees. Madison knows none of this. To her, I'm still the girl who ruined everything. Through the years, I've kept loose tabs on her through my grandmother, the only relative who stayed in touch. Madison became a corporate attorney, divorced her first husband, and now lives in a downtown San Diego penthouse. She's still meticulous about every detail of her public image. Watching her now, smiling with her bridesmaids, I feel the old mix of anger and something sadder. Part of me hoped that maybe she'd have grown into someone kinder. But judging by Daniel's comments, she's still telling the ruined sister a story. Lauren? I turned to see Grandma Rose climbing the cathedral steps, moving slowly but still with that sharp, assessing gaze. At 85, she's the one person in my family who never doubted me. I was hoping you'd come, she says, looking me over in my tailored navy blazer. You look like you've done well for yourself. I smile faintly. I've managed. We talk quietly, and she tells me my parents have aged, that Mom still asks about me sometimes when she thinks no one is listening. Then the rehearsal wraps up, and I watch Madison and Daniel head off toward the rehearsal dinner at the La Jolla Country Club, the same place where her friends once whispered about my arrest. I drive past the club on my way back to my hotel, seeing the manicured lawns and familiar brick facade. My phone buzzes. It's a text from Daniel. Great rehearsal. Can't wait for you to meet Madison tomorrow. She's going to love you. I stare at the message for a long moment before switching the phone off. Tomorrow is the wedding, and I still haven't decided if I'll show up. The next morning, I stand in front of the full-length mirror in my hotel room, staring at two very different options laid out on the bed. One is a muted grey dress, something that would let me melt into the crowd, anonymous and forgettable. The other is my San Diego Police Department dress uniform, pressed navy fabric, silver badge, medals arranged in precise order. It's not a choice I make lightly. The uniform says something. It announces that I'm not who they think I am anymore. But it also risks turning Madison's perfect day into something else entirely. After 10 minutes of staring at both outfits, I reach for the uniform. St. Andrews is packed when I arrive. Madison has always been the center of attention, and Daniel's Marine buddies have filled the pews with rows of dress blues. I slip into the last row just as the processional begins, my cap tucked under one arm. From back here, I can see it all, my parents in the front row, still with that air of formality even as their faces have softened with age. Madison gliding down the aisle on my father's arm, radiant in her gown, every detail perfect. She's living exactly the life she mapped out as a teenager, right down to the military officer husband. The ceremony is flawless, the kind of polished event you'd expect from Madison. When the priest pronounces them husband and wife, applause rolls through the cathedral, and for a moment I find myself smiling despite everything. Daniel's a good man. He deserves happiness, even if the woman he married has spent years erasing me from her life. The reception is at the Hotel Coronado's Grand Ballroom, a space that practically hums with old money. Crystal chandeliers, towering arrangements of white lilies, a live jazz trio in the corner. I take a small table at the back, nursing a glass of water, watching the swirl of gowns and uniforms. Dinner is barely finished when the toasts begin. Daniel's best man talks about loyalty and service. Madison's maid of honor shares college stories. My father speaks about a family legacy in that way that makes my chest tighten. Then Madison stands. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, as she begins, her voice smooth and confident. Daniel and I are so grateful to be surrounded by the people who have supported us and believed in us. I've been fortunate to come from a family that taught me the value of integrity, hard work, and living with purpose. She pauses, scanning the room. My instincts kick in. There's a shift in her tone. I know what's coming. Of course, not everyone takes the same path. Some make choices that don't bring honor. Choices that are a reminder of who we don't want to become. She glances at our parents, her chin lifting slightly. But even those experiences teach us something about resilience, about surrounding ourselves with people of character. There's polite laughter from a few tables. Daniel smiles awkwardly, clearly thinking this is just a generic sentiment. But I know exactly who she's talking about. And so does Grandma Rose, who's staring at her with narrowed eyes. The room is still applauding when I push my chair back. The scrape of wood on marble makes Daniel glance my way. His expression shifts from surprise to shock as recognition hits him. He leans toward Madison, whispering urgently. She turns, and our eyes lock for the first time in nearly 2 decades. The color drains from her face. I start walking toward the head table. My heels click against the polished floor, each step pulling the room into silence. Conversations fade. People turn in their seats to watch. Madison, I say evenly when I reach her, congratulations on your wedding. She stares at me as though I've just walked out of a ghost story. Lauren, how? What? Daniel and I have worked together, I say simply. He didn't know we were sisters. Daniel's still pale. Madison, I had no idea. She never mentioned. I reach into my jacket and pull out my badge, placing it on the pristine white tablecloth between the centerpieces. The gold shield catches the light. Sergeant Lauren Parker, San Diego Police Department. Major Crimes Unit. A ripple of murmurs spreads through the crowd. Madison's gaze flicks between my badge and my face. But you were arrested. You dropped out. I was 18, I say calmly. I witnessed something illegal. I wasn't charged. The case was dismissed. You never asked what actually happened. Our father is halfway out of his seat. Our mother grips her wine glass like it's the only thing keeping her upright. I went to military school, I continue. Then the Army Military Police. Then the Police Academy. For the past 15 years, I've investigated some of the most dangerous cases in this city. I've saved lives, Madison. I've served with honor. Daniel blinks. You were the lead on the Bayfront hostage rescue? I nod. The case had made national news, 30 civilians freed from an armed barricade in the old ferry terminal. God, he says softly. She's a legend in law enforcement circles. Madison swallows hard, her perfect composure starting to crack. This isn't possible. It's real, I tell her. I've been here all along. You just didn't want to see me. The room is holding its breath, waiting to see what happens next. The silence in the ballroom feels almost physical, pressing in on us. Madison's knuckles are white around the stem of her champagne flute. She's not used to being cornered, especially not in front of 300 people. You said, I repeat, that some family members bring shame instead of honor. That they're a reminder of what you don't want to be. Tell me, Madison, does that still apply now? Her jaw tightens. She doesn't answer. Daniel's hand is on the back of her chair, a silent anchor. His eyes keep darting between us, as if trying to reconcile two completely different versions of reality. My parents, seated a few feet away, look like they're struggling to breathe. My father's face is unreadable, but my mother's mascara is smudging under fresh tears. Finally, Madison whispers, I didn't know. I thought you. She stops herself, but the words are already out there. I thought you were nothing. You thought what you wanted to think, I tell her. It was easier to keep me as your failure than to admit you didn't know who I'd become. A cough breaks the stillness. Grandma rose. She's standing now, her cane steady in her right hand, her gaze sharp enough to cut glass. Maybe, she says, it's time people here knew the truth about both my granddaughters. Several guests shift uncomfortably. They've probably only ever heard Madison's version of our family story. The one where she's the golden child and I'm the cautionary tale. I let the moment stretch before I slide my badge back into my jacket. I didn't come here to ruin your night, Madison. but I wasn't going to sit quietly while you turned me into a punchline. I start to turn away, but Daniel stands abruptly. Wait, he says, his voice carrying across the ballroom. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet my sister-in-law, Sergeant Lauren Parker, one of the finest police officers I've ever worked with. She's risked her life for this city more times than I can count. It's like someone's hit a switch. The applause starts tentatively, then builds until the room is filled with clapping. People rise to their feet. Some are smiling, some are just staring at me like they're seeing me for the first time. Madison's still seated, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She doesn't clap. She doesn't look up. I step back, not basking in the applause, but letting it wash past me. This isn't about their approval. It's about setting the record straight. When the noise fades, I speak quietly to Daniel. I should go. This is your wedding night. But before I can leave, Madison finally lifts her head. Her voice is barely audible over the murmurs. Lauren, or wait. I stop. I'm sorry, she says. The words sound foreign in her mouth. I didn't. Her voice breaks. I didn't know. No, I say evenly. You didn't want to know. Her eyes glisten. You don't understand. She falters, then takes a shaky breath. I needed to be the perfect one. If you'd been successful, too, I don't know who I would have been. There it is. The unvarnished truth. Not cruelty, exactly, just the raw, selfish fear of losing her place at the top of a ladder she built in her own mind. You were never my competition, Madison, I tell her. You were just my sister. She looks away, her hands trembling in her lap. Daniel's arm slips protectively around her shoulders. I take one last look at my parents. My father is standing now, hesitant, like he's not sure whether to approach. My mother's tears are steady, but she doesn't move either. We've spent too many years as strangers for this to be fixed in one night. I think I've said what I needed to say, I murmur. And with that, I turn and walk toward the exit, the sound of murmured conversations following me like a wake. Outside, the cool coastal air hits my face. I hand my valet ticket to the attendant. As I wait for my car, I feel something I haven't in years: lightness. Not happiness, exactly. More like relief. The truth is finally out, and Madison can't shove it back into a box. The valet pulls up my car, and I slide behind the wheel. My phone vibrates with a string of new messages: Daniel apologizing, Grandma Rose telling me she's proud, a tentative one from my mother. And then, hours later, just after midnight, a text from Madison. Can we talk? I stare at it for a long moment before setting the phone face down on the passenger seat. Not tonight. Maybe not for a while. If we talk, it'll be on different terms. Equal terms. I drive away from the Hotel Coronado, the sound of the ocean faint through my open window, the city lights stretching ahead. 3 days after the wedding, I'm back in my San Diego precinct, halfway through a stack of reports, when a courier drops a padded envelope on my desk. There's no return address, but the handwriting on the front is neat and unmistakable: Madison's. I hesitate for a moment before opening it. Inside is a single photograph. Not one of the posed, picture-perfect wedding shots, but a candid someone must have taken during the reception. In it, Daniel is standing, introducing me to the crowd. Guests are clapping. Madison is looking straight at my badge, her face caught between disbelief and something I can't quite name. On the back, she's written, "I was wrong about everything. I'm proud to be your sister. M." I set the photo down carefully, unsure what to feel. It's not forgiveness. Not yet. But it's or a step. That week, I hear from Grandma Rose twice. She wants updates, but she also slips in small comments about my parents. "Your father's been quieter than usual," as she says one afternoon. "Your mother keeps asking me if she should call you." I tell her she doesn't need my permission, but deep down I know they're working up to it in their own, painfully slow way. Then, a week later, my phone buzzes while I'm reviewing surveillance footage in the squad room. It's Madison. I almost let it go to voicemail, but curiosity wins. "Lauren?" Her voice is hesitant, stripped of the polish she usually wears like armor. Oh. "I'm near your precinct. Thought maybe we could get coffee?" My first instinct is to say no. But the truth is, I've been thinking about that photo all week. "There's a diner across the street," I tell her. 15 minutes. When I walk into the diner, she's already there, sitting at a booth by the window, a latte in front of her. She stands as I approach, and for a second we just look at each other. There's no hug, no teary reunion. Just two women trying to figure out what comes next. "Thanks for meeting me," as she says, sliding back into her seat. "I wasn't sure you'd come." Neither was I admit. We talk in careful steps, like we're both afraid of hitting a landmine. She asks about my work, not the vague, dismissive kind of asking she used to do, but actual questions. I tell her a little, enough to give her a glimpse without crossing any confidentiality lines. When she talks about her job, there's less bragging than usual. She admits that the corporate law world is exhausting. That she sometimes wonders if she's built her whole identity around being perfect because she was afraid of being me. She laughs when she says it, but it's not unkind this time. Before we leave, she says, "I don't expect you to forgive me overnight. I just want to start over." It's the most honest thing I've heard from her in years. I nod. Starting over's fine. But this time, we tell the truth. Over the next month, we meet twice more. It's awkward, sure, but there are moments when it feels almost normal, like sisters swapping stories instead of rivals circling each other. Daniel joins us once, and is all warmth and easy conversation, like he's decided to make me part of his family whether Madison's ready or not. Then, out of nowhere, my parents send me an invitation. Just a small dinner at their house. I almost laugh when I see it. No big speeches, no apologies in writing, just to come to dinner in my mother's looping cursive. It's such a cautious olive branch, but it's an olive branch all the same. The night of the dinner, I pull up outside their Scottsdale home for the first time since I left for military school. The house looks smaller than I remember. My father opens the door, older and grayer but still with that straight-backed posture that says you're attorney before he even speaks. Inside, my mother is waiting in the living room, twisting a cloth napkin in her hands. "Lauren," as she says, and it's not cold this time. Not warm either, but different. Like she's testing out how it feels to say my name again. Dinner is strained. Conversation sticks to safe topics, work, news, the weather. But in the quiet moments, I catch them both looking at me like they're trying to fit this version of me into the old family picture. They're not ready to admit they were wrong, but they're not pretending I don't exist anymore. And that, for now, is enough. When I leave, my father walks me to the door. Just before I step out, he says, "Your grandmother's right. You've done well." It's the closest he's ever come to acknowledging anything about my life since I left. Driving away, I realize something important. Whether or not they ever say the words, I don't need their approval anymore. I've already proven who I am, to myself. 2 months after the wedding, I'm back on night rotation when a call comes in over the radio. Possible armed robbery in progress. Coleman and Briggs corporate law offices, downtown. It's almost midnight, and the name jolts me. Coleman and Briggs is Madison's firm. I flip on my cruiser's lights and hit the gas. The streets are mostly empty, rain slicking the asphalt into glistening ribbons under the city lights. Dispatch updates as I drive. Security cameras have gone offline, building alarms tripped, and an anonymous tip claims the suspects may be tied to a series of high-value corporate data thefts. When I pull up, 2 patrol units are already blocking the main entrance. The front glass doors are cracked, and the lobby lights are out except for the faint glow of the emergency exit signs. Officer Ramirez jogs over, rain plastering his hair to his forehead. "Sergeant," he says, "we think they're still inside. North wing, top floor." Security guards unconscious but breathing. No shots fired yet. I don't ask who's inside. I already know Madison keeps late hours, especially near trial deadlines. My stomach knots. We move in quietly, me, Ramirez, and Officer Delgado taking point. The building smells of wet carpet and copia toner, that peculiar blend of office after hours. My flashlight beam slices through the dim corridors until we reach the stairwell. From the top floor, I hear voices, low, urgent. A door creaks. I signal the team, and we move fast. The north wing is all glass offices and polished conference rooms. Halfway down the hall, a man in a black hoodie is hunched over desk, shoving files into a backpack. Another stands by the window, gloved hands scrolling through a laptop. They look up at the same time and freeze. Police. Hands where I can see them. The one with the laptop bolts for the fire escape. I chase, heart pounding, boots thudding against the carpet. He shoves the window open, but I grab the back of his hoodie and yank him hard to the floor. The laptop skitters across the tile. By the time Ramirez cuffs the second suspect, Delgado calls from down the hall. "Sarge, you need to see this." It's Madison's office. The door's hanging open, and she's standing inside, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her desk is a mess, files scattered, drawers yanked open. "Lauren," as she says, her voice low but steady. "They went through my entire case file for the Baxter trial. That's months of work." I glance at the scattered papers and then at her pale face. She's holding it together, but just barely. "We'll need your statement," I tell her gently. "And Madison, these guys weren't here for random documents. They were targeting specific information." Her eyes narrow. "You think this was about my client?" "I think," I say carefully, "as someone knew exactly what you were working on and wanted it badly enough to risk breaking into a high-security office." She doesn't answer right away. Her gaze shifts to the cuffed suspects in the hall, then back to me. "I'll tell you everything I know. Just not here." 2 hours later, after evidence is logged and the suspects are booked, Madison and I are sitting in a corner booth at the all-night diner near my precinct. She's still in her work clothes, blazer damp from the rain, hair pulled back in a messy knot. The Baxter case, as she says, leaning in, it isn't just a civil matter. It's tied to a federal investigation. Embezzlement, racketeering, you name it. My firm's been working with the FBI for months. If these files get out, it could blow the whole case. I sip my coffee, mind already spinning. You didn't mention this to me. Her expression is a mix of defensiveness and regret. I didn't think you needed to know. Anne. I wasn't sure how much I could tell you, given the rules. I can't help a short laugh. You and I both live under rules, Madison. But you could have trusted me. She winces. You're right. We sit in silence for a moment, the hum of the diner's neon sign buzzing faintly through the rain-streaked window. Look, I say finally, if this case is as big as you say, you're not just a bystander anymore. You're a witness. Maybe even a target. That means I'm involved whether you like it or not. Her eyes meet mine, and for the first time, I see something that looks like genuine relief. Then, I guess I'm glad you were there tonight. It's not an apology. Not exactly. But it's the closest we've come to trust. By the time we leave, the rain has stopped, and the streets glisten under the glow of the street lamps. Madison's car is parked 2 blocks away, and I walk her there, scanning the shadows out of habit. At her car, she pauses. Lauren, thank you. For showing up. For everything. I nod, but I don't say you're welcome. Not yet. The case has just gotten personal, and I have a feeling this is only the beginning. By sunrise the next morning, I'm back at the precinct with a fresh case file stamped priority. The 2 suspects from last night, both mid-level muscle with rap sheets for burglary, are refusing to talk. No IDs on them when we picked them up, and the laptop they had was wiped remotely within an hour of being logged into evidence. Whoever hired them knew exactly how to cover their tracks. I start my day in the evidence room, sifting through the physical items we seized, lock-picking tools, burner phones, a handful of encrypted USB drives. The drives are being sent to our cybercrime unit, but the burner phones are mine. I power one on, and almost immediately a text pings through before I can even scroll. Clean up. No loose ends. Meeting tonight. The timestamp is 15 minutes before the arrest. Someone out there doesn't know their crew got caught. Which means we still have a shot at following the trail before they realize what happened. Before I can plan my next move, Captain Herrera calls me into his office. Your lead on this now, Parker, he says. And there's another wrinkle. FBI's joining the investigation. Seems Madison's Baxter case is tied to a broader federal probe. I keep my face neutral, but inside, the tension ratchets up. This isn't just about Madison anymore, it's about jurisdiction. And in my experience, when the feds move in, things get messy fast. By noon, I'm sitting across from Special Agent Jordan Ellis in one of our conference rooms. He's tall, meticulous, and clearly not thrilled about working with local PD. Your sister's case, he says, sliding a thick folder toward me, is connected to a shell network laundering millions through dummy corporations. The Baxter firm is just one of several. We've been building this for 18 months. Last night's break-in could have compromised all of it. I flip through the folder, my stomach tightening. And you think someone inside Madison's firm tipped them off? We don't think, Ellis says flatly. We know. The words hit harder than I expect. Madison's firm isn't small, but it's tight-knit. If the leak is internal, it means someone she trusts is feeding information to organized crime. When I meet Madison for lunch at a small cafe near her office, I don't waste time. The FBI's in on this now. They believe you've got a mole. Her coffee cup stills halfway to her lips. A mole? In my office? I nod. Someone who knows exactly what you're working on and how valuable it is. Someone who had access to your files. She leans back, scanning some invisible roster in her head. There are only 6 people on my team. And I've worked with all of them for years. Years don't mean much when the money's right, I say. She flinches. I can't believe that. I don't push it. She'll have to come to terms with it herself. Instead, I slide a small recorder across the table. Wear this during your next staff meeting. Keep it casual, but listen. People talk when they feel safe. She hesitates, then pockets it. Fine. But if I do this, I want in on what you find. That night, I'm in my apartment with case files spread across the kitchen table. I'm tracing connections between the 2 burglars and known fixers for a West Coast syndicate when my phone buzzes, a message from Madison. You were right. Someone's talking. Call me. When I pick up, her voice is tight. It's Brent. Junior partner. I overheard him on the phone in the break room after hours, said something about delivering the package tonight and keeping the heat off. I don't know if he saw me. My pulse jumps. You need to get somewhere safe. Now. I can't just leave. She starts, but I cut her off. This isn't a negotiation. Go to Grandma Rosie's. I'll send a unit to meet you. By the time I arrive at her office, Brent's desk is empty, his computer powered down. But security footage shows him leaving 15 minutes earlier, with a briefcase. Heading straight for the parking garage. We put out a bolo, and 2 hours later, CHP spots his car abandoned off I-5. The briefcase is gone. Standing in the damp night air beside the empty vehicle, I can feel the case widening by the second. Brent isn't just a leak, he's a runner. And if he's got evidence from the Baxter case, the people he's working for won't let him keep it for long. Ellis calls me while I'm still at the scene. We traced the burner phone from last night. There's a meet scheduled in Long Beach at 2 a.m. If Brent's delivering, that's where he'll be. I glance at my watch. Less than 3 hours. Then we'd better be ready. It's 1:48 a.m. when our unmarked SUVs roll into the shadowed edges of the Long Beach docks. The air smells like salt and diesel, and a heavy marine layer blurs the glow of the harbor lights. Special Agent Ellis sits beside me, scanning the rows of shipping containers with binoculars. Our informant says the meet will happen at Pier 17, he says. 3 vehicles, maybe 4. Brent will be in one of them. Any chance they'll try to move him before the exchange? I ask. Every chance, he replies. That's why we're not waiting for him to hand over whatever he's carrying. We split into 2 teams, Ellis and his agents circling from the east, my unit taking the west flank. The plan is to box them in fast before anyone can scatter into the maze of containers. Through my earpiece, Ramirez whispers, a movement, 2 SUVs pulling in, dark tint, no plates. My eyes track the vehicles as they roll to a stop under a dim security light. A third car follows, a silver sedan. Brent's behind the wheel, looking pale even from here. He steps out with a briefcase, glancing around like a man who just realized the deal he agreed to might be the last thing he ever does. A figure emerges from the lead SUV, tall, in a leather jacket, moving with the easy confidence of someone used to giving orders. He nods to Brent, then gestures toward the open back of his vehicle. Ellis's voice crackles softly in my ear. Wait for the handoff. Wait. The moment Brent holds out the briefcase, Ellis gives the signal. Go. We move fast, boots pounding over concrete, shouts over police. Hands where I can see them, echoing through the dockyard. One suspect dives behind a crate, another bolts for the water. The tall man in the leather jacket draws a weapon, but freezes when my laser sight finds his chest. Drop it. I bark. He does, slowly, eyes flicking past me, toward Brent, who's now backed up against a container, clutching the briefcase like a life raft. Ramirez cuffs the leather jacket, while I move in on Brent. You're done running, I tell him, yanking the case from his hands. Whatever's in here is going to evidence. His mouth works like he's about to argue, but then his shoulders sag. You don't understand, he mutters. They said they'd kill me. Yeah, I say evenly, and if we'd been 2 minutes later, they might have made good on it. We haul him and the other suspects back to the SUVs. The briefcase, once opened under the portable lights, holds exactly what I expected: copies of sealed Baxter case files, plus a thumb drive. Ellis handles it with gloved hands, already calling in a cyber team. This drive could blow the whole network wide open, he says, looking almost impressed. By the time we roll back toward San Diego, the first streaks of dawn are softening the horizon. Brent is in custody, the case files are secured, and the immediate threat to Madison's case is over. But I know better than to think this is done. When I pull into my apartment garage at 7:15 a.m., my phone buzzes. It's Madison. I heard you got him, she says, voice tight. Is it safe now? As safe as it can be, I tell her. But you'll still need protection until the trial's over. We rattled some cages tonight. She's quiet for a moment. Lauren. I don't think I've ever really understood what you do. Not until now. I almost smile. Most people don't. And that's fine. I don't need a spotlight. Her next words catch me off guard. You've been protecting people like me your whole life, haven't you? Even when I didn't deserve it. I lean back in my chair, letting that sink in. That's the job, I say finally. It's also what sisters should do. The line is silent for a beat, then she says, a thank you. For last night. For everything. And this time, it sounds like she means it without reservation. After we hang up, I sit in the quiet of my kitchen, the adrenaline finally wearing off. The case is far from closed. Ellis will want me on joint operations until the Baxter trial is locked down, but something shifted last night. Madison saw me in my element. Not as the girl in handcuffs, not as the family embarrassment, but as the cop who runs toward danger instead of away from it. And I can tell it's going to be a lot harder for her to go back to the old story now. 2 weeks later, the Baxter trial begins under heavy security. The courthouse feels more like an armed checkpoint than a place of justice, uniformed officers at every entrance, metal detectors working overtime, plainclothes agents in the halls. I'm here in two capacities: officially, as part of the protective detail for a key witness, and unofficially, as Madison's sister. She's not just representing her firm in this case, she's the one delivering the closing arguments. And after what we uncovered, everyone knows she's on the radar of people who'd prefer the case to disappear. The morning crowd in the lobby is tense. Cameras flash as reporters swarm the courthouse steps, shouting questions about the high-profile defendants, 3 corporate executives accused of laundering millions through dummy companies tied to organized crime. Madison arrives in a sharp charcoal suit. Hair pulled back, briefcase in hand. She doesn't see me at first. She's focused, jaw tight, the way she used to get before big debates in high school. But when she does spot me, her shoulders drop just slightly, like she's relieved I'm there. Inside, I take my position near the gallery rail. Ellis is 2 rows behind me, eyes scanning the room. The defendants sit at the opposite table, their high-priced attorneys whispering in their ears. I recognize one of the defendants, Victor Soleno, from an unrelated case years ago. Back then, he'd smirked at every question I asked him. Today, he doesn't look so smug. The prosecution lays out its opening: shell corporations, falsified contracts, offshore accounts. Madison listens intently, jotting notes, her expression giving nothing away. When it's her turn, she rises with calm precision. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as she begins, this is not a case about accounting errors or misunderstandings. This is about a deliberate, coordinated effort to hide criminal activity behind a facade of legitimate business. Her voice is steady, each word measured. I watch the jurors lean in. This is Madison's arena, and she knows how to own it. Midway through the day, during a recess, Ellis pulls me aside in the hallway. We got word someone tried to bribe a juror last night. Didn't take, but it means they're getting desperate. Security gets doubled, effective immediately, I tell him. And Madison doesn't go anywhere without a tail. The afternoon session is tense. The defense starts chipping away at witnesses, trying to paint them as unreliable. Madison counters with precision, dismantling each claim without raising her voice. It's surgical, calculated pressure until the defense retreats. But near the end of the day, something happens that makes every cop in the room sit up straighter. During a side bow at the bench, one of Soleno's associates in the gallery stands, reaches into his jacket, and moves toward the rail. I'm already moving before anyone else. Hands where I can see them. My voice cuts through the murmurs. 2 other officers converge, pinning him before he can make it another step. His jacket spills open, no weapon, but a folded note and a wad of cash. Ellis takes the note. His jaw tightens. Message for a juror. Threat. The judge clears the gallery and orders the jury sequestered for the rest of the trial. Madison meets my eyes across the room. There's no fear in her expression now, just a grim kind of understanding. By the time court adjourns, the courthouse steps are a frenzy of media again. Madison is mobbed with questions, but I step in, steering her toward the secure exit. In the SUV, she exhales slowly. This is worse than I thought. It's what I've been telling you, I say. These people play dirty. You're a threat to them, so they'll try to make you disappear, legally or otherwise. She glances at me. I used to think your world and mine were completely different. Now I'm not so sure. They're not, I say quietly. We're both fighting the same fight. just on different fronts. The rest of the week is a grind. Long court days, constant security checks, a rotating roster of officers assigned to Madison. She handles it better than I expected, never missing a beat in court, even when the pressure ratchets up. On Friday, the prosecution rests. The defense has their turn next week, but for now, Madison walks out of the courthouse with her head high, the evening sun catching in her hair. She looks different. Not softer, exactly, but less like someone holding a mask in place. As we reach her car, she pauses. "Lauren?" "Yeah." "I'm glad you're here. Not just for the case. For me." For a moment, I don't answer. Then I nod. "Me too." The defense spends the next week doing exactly what we expected, casting doubt, spinning stories, and trying to make the jury believe the case is nothing but overblown bookkeeping errors. But every time they land a hit, Madison is ready. She works through the witnesses like a surgeon, cutting away lies and leaving the truth exposed. On the last day of testimony, she delivers her closing argument. I've seen her speak before, but this is different. She isn't just reciting legal points, she's telling the story of a crime that reached from boardrooms to back alleys, affecting ordinary people who never knew their lives were being touched by organized crime. This, as she says to the jury, her voice firm, is about accountability. About whether powerful people get to play by different rules than the rest of us. The evidence is here. The choice is yours. When she sits down, Ellis leans toward me from the row behind. "Your sister's good." "She always was," I say quietly. "She just didn't always use it for the right reasons." The jury deliberates for 3 days. During that time, Madison stays under close watch. We rotate officers in and out of her apartment building, and I personally drive her to and from the courthouse. She complains about the constant shadowing, but I can tell she feels safer knowing we're there. On the 4th morning, the call comes in, verdict reached. The courtroom is packed, tension so thick you could feel it in your teeth. Madison sits at the plaintiff's table, expression unreadable. The defendants watch with the brittle calm of people who already suspect what's coming. The foreperson stands. On the charge of conspiracy to commit money laundering, we find the defendants guilty. The words hang in the air for a beat, then the rest of the verdicts follow, guilty on all counts. Madison exhales, just barely. The room buzzes with reporters scribbling notes, defense attorneys already planning appeals. But for now, it's over. The network Madison's case helped expose will be dismantled piece by piece, and the people who try to buy or threaten their way out of justice are headed to prison. Outside, the press swarms again. Madison gives a short, controlled statement about justice, the rule of law, and her team's dedication. When they start asking about the threats during the trial, she redirects and walks away. We take the secure exit to the side lot, and for the first time in weeks, I see her shoulders actually relax. "Feels strange," she says as we walk toward the SUV. "Like I've been holding my breath for months." "That's normal," I tell her. "Now you get to breathe again." She stops by the passenger door and looks at me. "You know, when you showed up at my wedding, I thought you were there to embarrass me. I didn't see it for what it was." "And what was it?" I ask. She smiles, but it's small, a little sad. "You were there to tell the truth. To remind me who you are. And who we could still be." I study her for a moment. "We're not there yet," Madison. But maybe we're closer than we were. She nods. I'd like to keep getting closer. We drive in silence for a while, the coastal highway curving along the edge of the Pacific. The sun's starting to dip, throwing the water into streaks of gold and deep blue. It feels like the right kind of ending, not perfect, not tied up in a neat bow, but real. A week later, I'm back on regular rotation when a package arrives at my desk. Inside is a framed photo, not from the trial, but from the diner weeks ago, taken by Grandma Rose when we weren't looking. Madison and I are sitting across from each other, mid-conversation, both smiling, not forced, but genuine. There's a note taped to the back. I used to think winning was about being the best. Now I know it's about standing together. M. I set it on the corner of my desk, next to my commendations. It doesn't erase the years between us, but it's proof that bridges can be rebuilt, plank by plank. And as I head out on my next call, badge clipped to my belt, I realize something. I never needed Madison to validate my life. But having her in it again, on honest terms, feels like a victory all its own.